If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
In the market for new or used guns, look no further than Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun. Whether you want to buy, sell, or trade, we got you covered. While you're here, check out our large selection of jewelry. We offer gold, silver, diamond, and beautiful estate jewelry. Looking for electronics? We have almost anything you can think of. We always carry new and used guns, so come here first and shop with a local business you can trust. Carolina Jewelry Pawn and Gun, serving you for over 25 years. 443-1668, 2552 Sunset Avenue, Rocky Mount.
Welcome to the K-Files. This morning, 8 o'clock, we do the K-Files, and again, we repeat it on Friday night at 7 o'clock for you to watch in case you did not see it. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. So glad to have you here. Let's do a little rundown of what's going to happen today.
Sure. Well, let's get this out of the way really quick if we can.
Okay.
This is Zartavius Henderson. He's a Rocky Mount 19-year-old. He was murdered in downtown Tarboro on June 5th. The Tarboro Police Department reached out to us through our partner Fighting Crime and asked us to please put his picture up and let people see him and know that there's a reward being offered for any information that leads to an arrest in that case. Again, that's Zartavius Henderson from Rocky Mount. He was shot on June 5th in downtown Tarboro, taken to the hospital, died at the hospital.
Sad.
So, absolutely. So if you know anything about this gentleman or know anything about what happened, give them a call. The number will be at the bottom of the screen. It's 252-406-6736.
Okay.
That's Zartavius Henderson.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yep, you bet. Okay, so coming up in the show in a little while, we'll have Detective Sergeant Robert Tender with the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Department. He's got a case that they really want to get on the air and let people hear about it. That's one of those cases that you said it's maybe close to being solved. We'll see, depending on
we hope so.
The information that we have. Okay, and then here's Misty Strickland is coming up at the end of the show. She is with the Nash County Sheriff's Office, and she's going to talk a little bit about Travis Lynch and the case that I've been writing about every week for 7 months now.
Right, that's the case down in Bailey.
Right, absolutely. And okay, so moving on, getting all that housekeeping out of the way, it's time to talk about Mr. Cobb. And just to run down, this is, I think, our 4th week talking about
Yes.
Mr. Cobb. So,
Yes.
I
Cobb, right
I
there.
want to run down what we've talked about really quickly, okay? He was
Okay.
75 years old. He had been a Nash County, he'd been on the Nash County Board of Education, the Board of Commissioners, the hospital board, and a trustee for the Elks Lodge, right? So
Yes.
accomplished quite a bit in his lifetime. He had left the Elks Lodge on a Friday. This is in 2014. Family was really suspicious when he didn't show up to church on Sunday morning. A couple days later, they went to his house. They found him dead in his garage office. He had been stabbed 4 dozen times with a screwdriver. Okay, 4 dozen times with a screwdriver. So this was an act of violence. It was definitely, I think, an act of passion. You don't, if you're going to rob someone, you stab them 2 or 3 times.
Right.
You don't stab them 40-something times if you're just
That's
looking to
right.
rob them.
That's
And
exactly
there was
right.
no indication of any robbery happening anyway.
Right. That's right.
Okay, so now, we get down to the nitty-gritty of Mr. Cobb, and he did accomplish all those things, and everybody loved him for it. And the one thing that it kind of the worst kept secret in Rocky Mount is how much of a ladies' man that Mr. Cobb was.
Right.
And I talked to his brother about it a year or so ago, and and he was like, nobody's perfect, and he's right. But I think it's important to talk about the sort of thing that Mr. Cobb was into, and I'll tell you the reason why afterwards. I'm not just throwing dirt around. If there's family listening that you don't want to be upset by this, tune out for a minute or two, and then just come back to us. But when Fighting Crime posted some information about Mr. Cobb in advance of this show,
Right.
Okay, she got. I originally was going to post it on the screen, but I don't want people to focus too much on this stuff. But here's some printouts that came back from commenters that were posting on that webpage. And,
Right.
The first one, and these are actual people. These aren't like anonymous people. It's really people. It's really easy to insult someone anonymously.
Right, right.
But
Oh,
these are folks, and what one of them says is that Mr. Cobb was a ladies' man. He made many unsolicited proposals to women, including myself.
Wow.
So here's one woman saying that Mr. Cobb made unsolicited proposals. I know that he hung out at the Gators, the restaurant here in town, and I talked to some waitresses there, and they said that when he came in the store, they would go hide in the back.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't want to be the one that got
Wow.
accosted by Mr. Cobb that day. And here's another woman who says, my friend used to sleep with Jeff Cobb for money. So, pretty harsh things to say about somebody, especially a dead person. So, why am I saying that here on the air? Is because it is not a secret, folks, and everybody knows it. So my concern, and I talked to the detectives, and a little bit of concern there was that folks who might know something aren't really saying anything because they think that people don't know this,
Right.
or they think that they don't want to injure the reputation of a guy that was in
Right.
such high standing. But sometimes you got to shine a little bit of sunlight on something if you want some results.
That's
so if
right.
there's somebody out there that was involved in this part of Mr. Cobb's life but hasn't really wanted to come forward and say anything, now's the time.
It is anonymous, folks. It is anonymous.
Absolutely. You call that phone number, no one will know anything about you except for the information that you provide that goes straight to law enforcement.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so getting into the night that Mr. Cobb died,
Yes.
which I believe be that Friday that he
Right.
went home from the Elks Club. According to his autopsy and some other information that I gathered, there was a open box of condoms in his bedroom, right by his bed. Okay, and remember his bedroom light was still on when they went and looked.
Heard you say that.
Yeah, when they went and
Yes.
looked on Sunday, and then when they found his body on Tuesday, his bedroom light was still on. So he was in the bedroom there. I think toward the very end. There also was a woman's hairbrush on the bedroom floor. And I talked to
Interesting.
I talked to Chief Robinson, and he said that his detectives have run DNA on the hair that was on that hairbrush. So, they're waiting on the results on that. But the thing about DNA is it has to come back to a match.
Yeah, you
So
gotta have a match.
you have to have a match. So maybe there's a female violent offender in the system, but I mean that's sort of rare.
Yeah, that very well may not be the
But
case too.
But they have DNA to match to a suspect if they develop it.
That's exactly
And
right.
that's why that's why I'm saying the things about Mr. Cobb that I'm saying now is that if you're sitting out there in TV land and you know someone who had dealings, a female who had dealings with Mr. Cobb there toward the end, that'd be the perfect time to make some money and
Absolutely.
and do the right thing.
There
too.
are rewards offered, folks.
Right. I mean, his life wasn't a secret. Everybody kind of knew what Mr. Cobb liked, and you can't hurt the man; he's dead. But you can help the family by providing that information.
Well, we want the family to have closure.
Right.
We really do.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's like I said, you stab someone 40-something times with a screwdriver.
Something tells me in my mind, Linda, that whomever, if a lady was there that night, this wasn't her first rodeo with Jeff Cobb.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't stab somebody 46 times, first time, never knew them before, in my mind.
Right. And you're absolutely right.
Because you're thinking about all these other times or
right.
things or...
Overkill, absolutely.
Yes.
And then the fact that Mr. Cobb's face was covered up with a shower curtain.
Yes.
We talked about that before. I do believe that is a admission of guilt on the person who did this. That is they feel ashamed, they feel bad. So then again, it goes to, like you said, this was not somebody that he picked up for the first time. Mm-hmm. Right? This is somebody, very, very good call on that. This is someone that he's known before.
Right.
So the cat's out of the bag. People can't pretend like we don't know what Mr. Cobb liked to do in his off time.
Right.
So folks need to they need to come out. I mean, it's not easy to sit on TV and say this stuff about somebody.
And it's not, and this was Mr. Cobb's personal, he could do what he wanted to.
Right.
He could have as many women as he wanted to over there. The reason we're bringing this up, this is what could have led to his demise.
Yeah, and I mean, given Mr. Cobb really only did a few things.
Mm-hmm.
After he retired, I mean, he was a school teacher. He was all these things that he did. He was very active in civil life, but then toward his older age, he went to church.
Right.
And he entertained women. So,
Yeah.
I mean, of the two things, which one's more likely to get him stabbed 40-something
Absolutely.
times? So,
Absolutely.
folks, if you know someone like these people that posted on Facebook, take the time, call this number, let law enforcement know exactly who you know that had dealings with Mr. Cobb, and that can start them on a trail of maybe one day getting that DNA matched up with what they've got.
Do you know who was with Mr. Cobb on that night?
Absolutely.
Do you know who was with him? If you weren't him, her, or him, or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, that's good information.
Right,
And thorough information, I must say, Linda, on the Jeff Cobb case.
we spent, this is our 4th week on it, because
Yeah.
a case like this, I want to take the time to detail exactly what was
Right,
going
and
on.
I'm sure the officers have more. We're not trying to play detective here.
Look at me, folks. They didn't pick me to do this because of my looks, right? They picked me to do this because I've been doing it for 20 years. And I have, I understand, like Sandra said, I'm not playing detective, but I'm telling a story.
Right.
And in order to tell that story, I have to provide the public with certain details, sometimes ugly details, but they're necessary
They are necessary.
They're necessary in helping the police solve these crimes. So if you know something, call that number and let's get Mr. Cobb, a man who gave so much to the community. I mean, folks, this guy was, his family is very wealthy, very established in town. he did not have to do the things that he did.
Right.
You know, he didn't have to serve on the hospital board. He didn't have to, you know, didn't have to serve on the board of education.
Right.
You know, I mean, the man was a school teacher. I mean, he could have really probably done nothing his entire life.
Right.
You know, but he chose to.
And he gave back.
Right. He chose to do
His
these
entire
things.
life.
So, let's repay the Cobb family for what they've done for Rocky Mountain by helping them solve the murder of their son, brother, and so there's that. Okay. Moving on to Mr. Butler. I wanted to touch very briefly on that before we go to the break.
And tell them which case that is.
Right.
Just a brief.
Sure. Mr. Butler went missing from Rocky Mountain in 1995. Right. We have been highlighting him since the beginning, just like Mr. Cobb, every week. We have talked to detectives about it, and they say that something may be coming soon. So, we're trying to figure that out, and giving them room to do that. So, Mr. Butler missing since 1995. If you have any information about him, call that hotline and help. Let's help find this guy. And like I said, we've got Detective Sergeant Robert Tender that's going to be here to talk about the Steve McRae case, and Major Strickland will be here later on to talk about the Travis Lynch case. So we're things are happening quick.
They are.
We went from looking for guests to having too many.
This is great that we're reaching out. The partnerships are great that we formed through this show. It's got to be everybody working together for the same common goal, and that's to solve the crimes and hopefully get you calling if you know anything about these crimes, and to give closure to families.
Right.
So that's our goals here. So anyway, with that being said, I guess we'll take our first break, and we'll be right back. Okay, and welcome back. And I'm almost off the screen, aren't I? Okay, we have Sergeant Tender with us from the Edgecombe County Sheriff's Department. I love both of our sheriff's departments. Y'all do a wonderful job.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank y'all for your service. Thank you, all of y'all, for what you do for our communities to keep us safe. Okay, Lyndall, I'll let you take over.
Sure. You're here today. You're going to talk about Steve McRae.
Yes.
Is that, am I pronouncing that right?
It's McGray. Mac Gray.
Mac Gray. Okay. 63 years old.
Yes, sir.
He disappeared back in January.
Yes, sir.
Okay, really quick, just to save you from having to go through the basics. There's a white male, brown and gray hair, blue eyes, 5'6" 145 pounds, a staggering walk. He was last seen in a white t-shirt and blue jeans.
Yes, sir.
And he was last seen at 4 p.m. January 3rd on Robinson School Road in Tarboro.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we were talking yesterday, and you were telling me about everything that you've done to try to find this gentleman, and I thought it was fascinating how much work y'all put into it. So can you kind of tell folks everything that y'all have done?
Yes, sir. We got the call on actually Tuesday, January 7th, around 6 or 6:15 in the evening, about him being missing. We were told that he had some mental impairments that would make us worried that he was out walking around and not know where he's at. So we actually issued a silver alert, which is when somebody has a mental impairment that you issue a silver alert. It's like an amber alert, but it's for people that are that have mental incapacities. We started that night, we were working on it, and then Wednesday morning we went out around 8 o'clock to his area where he lives. His trailer is in a field that is surrounded by woods, swamps. There's a pond out there, so we wanted to make sure he wasn't out hurt in those fields. So we had 8 four-wheelers, we had 8 deputies on four-wheelers. We had the assistance of a helicopter that we used for at least 3 days. We also had people walking the ditch banks. We walked where his residence is. We were told he walked to Princeville, which is probably about a 5 or 6 mile walk from his residence to Princeville. He would walk to the store, and he'd also walk to the dollar store. So we covered that whole 5 mile area by air, land, with four-wheelers and vehicles riding around, and we did everything we could for 3 days, unable to locate anything. We went back out there the following week and did it again. We wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. We know he didn't have a vehicle, so we know he was walking. We were told that by family members. We were told that by his best friend that would come pick him up and take him to the store if he needed to go shopping. he had talked to his family on Sunday. He talked to some of his family members Sunday and said he wasn't feeling good. That's what brought our attention to maybe he's out in the field somewhere. He walked away from home and he didn't know how to get back. He fell down, he got injured. We wanted to make sure that he was okay. If he was out in the field, we wanted to get him help as quick as possible. So we also had a dive team come out and put a sonar into the pond that was probably 200 to 300 yards behind his house. We did that, and negative results. They didn't find anything in the pond. That's pretty much what we did. Like I said, we worked on this. We worked on trying to find him for several weeks.
That's a lot.
Yes, sir. We actually went back in March or April, and we figured maybe the fields were cut, or the trees were shorter, or anything. We were just trying to figure out.
Right.
So we went back out there again with negative results. So we still are actively looking for him. You know, at this point, he's been missing 7 months. So
A couple weeks after he went missing, his debit card got used, right?
actually,
How long was it?
his debit card was used on Sunday, January, let me get my dates right, Sunday, January 5th, and then Tuesday, January 7th.
Okay, so he'd been missing for a couple days then.
Right,
and his debit card had been used.
Yes, sir, his debit card was used.
Tell us a little bit about that interesting plot point.
We were able to contact the credit card company. It takes a while to go through the process of getting the paperwork done. When we got the paperwork back, we were notified that the person had used the debit card at different ATMs through the county and also in Nash County. When we went and got those pictures, we were able to determine that the person using his credit card was a Brittany Matt Gray.
Same last name.
Yes, sir. That's his daughter.
That's his daughter.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So his daughter's using his debit card a couple days after he's missing.
Yes, sir.
How did that? Well, we have her mugshot. Tell us how that ended up.
She was arrested and charged with identity theft and several other obtaining property by false pretenses by using his card without permission.
Given the fact that you have, you looked for Mr. McCray exhaustively. I mean, that was more than I've seen in most missing person cases, to be honest with you.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you really beat the bushes for Mr. McCray. I mean, how do you think Mr. McCray is right now? What do you think his disposition is?
I hate to even judge on that or answer that question. Like I said, he's been missing since January, and it's now July. No family's heard from him, his mom and his sister. No one has heard from him since the day he was reported missing.
Gotcha. So the viewers can read from that what they
can take from it.
Absolutely, I understand that. All right, so tell us, you're on the show here to talk about Mr. McCray and to get people to call in,
Right.
and see. I mean, tell me how you think this is. You think this is going to work out, this whole show thing? I mean, what we're doing here.
I would like for it to. I would love for somebody to call us and say, hey, we saw him walking. That's why I made the statement that he walked from Robertson School Road to Princeville every day, because I want the viewers to understand that if they saw him, please call. Let us know. Say, hey, I saw him walking this day. Just remember that he went missing January 4th. Don't call us and say you saw him in December, because that doesn't help us, because he wasn't missing then. He's been missing since January 3rd or 4th. It'd be helpful to have somebody that has seen him walking. He may have gotten a vehicle. We don't know what happened to him.
Okay, so you've been with the sheriff's office for 20 years.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Tell me, just because I like to always put a little bit of character to everybody. Have you worked anywhere else before?
No,
the
sir.
sheriff's office?
I worked at Edgecombe County Sheriff's Office my whole career.
Wow. So you know Edgecombe County then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you're talking about, like when I said Robert School Road, I have no idea where that's at. But I mean, you know the area.
Yes, sir.
So when you did that search, I mean, you knew where you were
Yes.
searching and everything. I mean, I think that's great that that you know Edgecombe County probably better than a lot of people.
I've been here a while. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. I appreciate it, Sandra.
Yes, sir.
Do you got
Yeah.
anything?
Well, I think this is great. The relationship is great. I thank y'all for the partnership with Edgecombe
ma'am.
County. We hope to, of course, bring closure to families and to help y'all in any way we can. Hopefully, people will call the number 406-6736 if you know anything about Mr. McCray. So thank you for being on this morning.
And thank you, and on behalf of Sheriff Atkinson, I'd like to thank you for having us on here this morning.
Absolutely.
He's been fantastic. He really has.
Yes.
I mean, from the day that he took office, when he was appointed,
Right.
first thing he
Yes.
said to me was that we're gonna work on some of these old cases. So, and that's what, Mr. Matt Cray is only 7 months now. But I mean, the hope here is to stop it before it gets to be
Gets too
10 or
cold.
20. Right.
Right.
Absolutely. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Appreciate you coming on.
All right, thank you,
And
ma'am.
we'll be checking back with you to
All
see what's going on with the case.
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
She's Strickland, did I get that right?
You
Major?
did. Yes, ma'am.
There's so many major, all of that, so.
No, there's actually
anyway,
only 2 of them.
Yes,
Well, yesterday, June 1st, we promoted Major Wilson.
Oh, really? So
Alan
now
Wilson.
Now there's 3.
Right, so he's over the detention division now. So we got
Historically, there had been 2 majors. hadn't there?
2, Major Eddie Moore and myself, and then, like I said,
Now,
June, July 1st.
would David Brake say that he needed 2 people to replace him? Is that what he would say?
Well, so Major Moore took over Major Brake's spot.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, I'm messing with you.
Yeah.
yes.
All right, so, you know what we're doing here. We're having a TV show, we're talking about unsolved cases, trying to get the public to chime in on that. The sheriff's all behind that. I mean,
Right.
what do you think about what we're doing? How do you think it's gonna work?
I think it's going to go great. With the media and the community, and the general on board, he brings a lot of leadership, and he's connected to the community. And that's what we need with this. Law enforcement can't do this job alone. We need the community support, and we need because there are people out there that know about these cases. They know. So it's just a matter of them stepping up and telling us what we need to know to
Nice.
close
Okay.
it, yeah.
I appreciate that. All right, so we're here today to talk about Travis Lynch. I've been writing about him I wrote about him before over the years, but since January, I've been writing about him every week for 7 months.
Wow, Lyndall.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to it, you know, there's a lot to this case. So Travis was 21 years old. He's from both Nash and Wilson. I mean, he grew up in
Right.
Nash. We'll talk about that. But he disappeared on Christmas Eve, 2003.
And that's an older picture of him.
Right.
Yeah. A younger version of him,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I wanted to use something different than the one we use in the paper
Yeah.
every week. You know, we use that picture all the time. So you're right. That's one of his yearbook picture.
Right.
probably. Right. Well, I mean, that's apropos for what
Yeah,
we're going to talk about.
exactly.
All right. So he goes missing Christmas Eve 2003, and last seen with his girlfriend's family in the Middlesex Bailey area. Okay. And like I said, I've been writing about it for 6 or 7 months. But you have been involved in this case for much, much longer than that, not just as an investigator, but you were also Travis's school resource officer when he was in high school.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? Okay. So can you kind of, I think it's very unique for an investigator to know a person before they're a victim, right? Or to know about a person before they end up being a victim.
Right.
So can you kind of tell us I think you're in a unique position to tell us what Travis was like.
Okay, so we put SROs in the schools. That was relatively new back then. And I was at Southern Nash, which is now middle school. Back then, it was Southern Nash Junior High School, and it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Travis was a 9th grader there when I came on board as a SRO, and I think he was sort of inquisitive about the position and about me as a deputy, and I just got to know him. Most of the time at lunchtime out there, he would come and talk to me just like a regular 9th grader. Cars, girls, I mean, he loved music. He's at that age where he was trying to find himself, so I would try to guide him, and he was just real charismatic toward me. That's why I remember him so much. And then, unfortunately, later, this occurs. And
Right. So I mean, how did you? I mean, having known him before, and then having to work on his missing persons case, and I just talked about with Sergeant Tender, someone who's missing for 16 years is it really missing, right? I mean, they're
Well,
more than likely dead. So I mean, what, you know? I
He
mean, how does
hasn't
that-
contacted his family. He hasn't made any purchases. His car hasn't been seen. He hasn't been seen. Jackie has that's the mother, Jackie Lynch. She's become part of my family throughout the 16 years. She's been to family events. She calls weekly, and I have to set aside when she calls about
Come on,
30 minutes.
it's more like daily, ain't it?
Well,
I mean, she's been
it-
calling me a little bit. I think it's a little bit more like daily.
It depends. She goes in phases. She might skip a couple of weeks, and then it just depends on how she's feeling.
Right.
But my children have grown up with Miss Jackie calling, so she's part of our family. The biggest thing, and I want to stress this to the Middlesex community, they know. They know exactly what happened. There's several people that know. And to bring closure to this mother who for the past 16, almost 17 years cannot have closure about her son, I want them to understand that, like I've told you before, Jesus does not like ugly, and it affects, it can affect their loved ones.
Right.
That's just how I feel about it. There's been a lot of tragedy in the Middlesex Bailey area with people that are connected to this case, and I just don't think until it's resolved, that area won't settle down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no peace in that area.
No peace. It's something there, and just this week, I spent Monday and Tuesday with another detective out of state following up on some leads. So it's active, thankfully to you. And,
No, I mean,
well,
it's
to
always-
everybody. The media putting it out there. We need the media.
Right.
And sometimes the media gets a bad rap, but we work together. If we all work together and join
Yes,
in.
and that's how we feel about this, Misty, and we really, really do appreciate Sheriff Stone. Please tell him that. We
Yes.
appreciate the relationship and the willingness to work with us on
Right.
this. We really do. And we'll say again, Misty, how important it is, you would say, call the number 406-6736. If you know anything, it's completely anonymous. It's completely anonymous. We will not know. I will not know who you are. We don't get involved in that part of it. Call, that is a fighting crime number, 406-6736, and your tip will be given directly to the authorities without any identity. So please, if you know anything about this case, as the major said, people in Middlesex do know about this case. They do know about this case.
And it's an opportunity to pick up some major money.
Right now, it's $20,000.
Right.
And possibly more.
And that's 20,000 without the team that we put together, their money.
Yes,
So I mean,
right.
we're
And
talking, it could be closer to 50,000.
It
really.
could.
Right.
So I mean, it's time for somebody to make a little bit of Christmas money and tell what they know, and you know, this is long overdue for Miss Lynch. You know, I mean,
16 years
this
is a long
torn,
time.
This has torn this woman apart. It's torn the family apart.
It's heart-wrenching. And like I said, some of the players in this situation, we did a federal roundup with narcotics with several people, and some of them have gotten out of jail, and some of them now have their own children. So I hope and pray, because we have this puzzle, we're missing one piece. That's
Right.
it. We've got a lot of it together. We just need this one piece to put it all together.
Yes.
We're close. This case has been worked on by pretty much every member of the CID since day one. Every detective has had their hands in it. This is a case that's close to the Nash County Sheriff's Office heart. There's a lot of work that's been put into it and a lot of time, but emotionally, we want it closed for Jackie.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, anything else, Lyndall? For Major Misty Strickland, thank you. I'm sure you'll come back and update us from time to time.
We will.
What's going on and with the case, because the viewers do get interested in the cases, and you know they want the same thing we want. And I know you do too out there, so please call the number if you know anything. The only way this show will work is for the community to work with us. You're our partner as well. You're our partner as well out there. So please know that. So thank you, Major, for being on with us this morning.
And thank you all for this opportunity and this platform to get these cases out. And Sheriff Stone really appreciates it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I enjoyed that with both of our Edgecombe County and our Nash County representatives this morning. I thank them for coming, and it's interesting. These cases are so interesting.
And let me throw out, you had a meeting with the people from the police department yesterday.
I did.
And they'll be on here really soon to talk about some of their cases.
Yes, they've got some they want to talk about it. I think law enforcement is enthused with what we're doing. I'm getting, the vibe that they are enthused about this. Any help they can get, to solve these cases, because let's face it, we need to move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
Get one solved, get it off the list, move on, get closure.
And
all
there's also I've been talking to some of them about cases that we can close other than arrest. There's some
Yes.
cases that have been around for 20 or 30 years. The suspects
Yes.
are dead. Obviously the victim is dead.
Yes.
Some of these you can let the public know that, hey, this is something, there's not going to be an arrest in this case because of these circumstances, but we can take it off the list of cases that people think are unsolved in the area.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of time, and that was great.
Well,
I mean, the way it went. But I wanted to mention something. I wasn't going to bring
Okay.
it up, but since we have the time,
Okay.
there's this thing called Senate Bill 168.
Okay.
Okay, and what Senate Bill 168 is trying to do is make autopsies confidential. And so, in other words,
wow.
the member of the public cannot ask and look at an autopsy. Now, I mean, in North Carolina, it's that way in some other states, but in North Carolina, autopsies have always been public record. But there's a few members of the Senate who passed this bill. It's sitting on the governor's desk.
Right.
And if he signs that bill, then you and I won't be able to get an autopsy.
Wow.
And that hurts a lot of things. That helps groups that investigate public health. There's a question. I talked with Sheriff Stone about it the other day, and there's a lot of people that are questioning the amount of coronavirus deaths and everything.
Right.
So if this bill were passed, you couldn't look at that. You couldn't
Yeah.
try to find out how someone died
Wow.
like that. Also,
I don't like that.
no, nobody does. The people I talked to Senator Horner the other day. He don't like it
Oh,
either, and he voted
I can
for
imagine.
it. So what happened was it was tucked away inside a innocuous
Of
health
course.
bill, and they
course.
stuck it down
That's
in
how
there.
they do it.
And nobody even knew it existed.
Package deal.
Now, the people who wrote that were one Democrat and one Republican. So it was a bipartisan knuckleheads who wrote this bill.
Right.
So the problem with this is it's not just like the news media who uses autopsies, but like I said, public health groups that look at deaths, advocacy groups. There's a group that looks at women who have been raped and murdered or whatever.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to get the information. And it just and like the
What are the chances of it passing?
well, I mean,
Think it will?
Well, it's all up to the governor now whether he signs it or not. I think
the governor.
there's people protesting at the governor's mansion right now in Raleigh against this, and the people who signed it don't even want it to pass. Now, I mean, they don't even want the law now.
Wow.
So hopefully it's dead in the water.
Hopefully
But
so.
I mean, just a couple examples. I mean, I wrote a story based solely on when I first got here 6 years ago. I wrote a story about a skeleton that was found in the woods 20 years ago.
Right.
I used only the autopsies, the only information I had. There was no other existing information. I wrote from the autopsy.
Right.
I had a local law enforcement official tell me that they were not even aware of the case and that they were going to start investigating it. They didn't even know about it. Excuse me, not a knock on them at all, but I'm saying
Right.
that if the general public is denied access to public records, then.
good,
Not
no.
good, not good at all.
Not
And,
good.
and so, I mean, probably next would be death certificates, which would really,
That would really be bad.
yeah, because, you know,
Really
a death
be bad.
certificate has a lot of information
It
on it.
does.
And you can go and you can get that right from the register of deeds for 10 cents a copy. I mean, it's extremely helpful. And what we did, when I was down at the beach, about 12 years ago, we wrote several stories. We spent months and months looking over every death certificate dating back to the 1950s in Onslow County, and we were able to show that they were dumping battery acid and fuel oil and dry cleaner liquids into the ground right next to the drinking water for the people that lived on base.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to show how many people had died of cancer in that one small little area. That information led to the Military Health Care Act in 2010,
Right,
which
right.
provides health care for
Interesting.
all of these people that have caught cancer while at Camp Lejeune.
Good for y'all.
None of that would have happened if we couldn't look at this
Yeah,
information.
that's right.
So this is a bad bill. It's you know, it's sometimes the government, they try to do the right thing, but
Oh,
then
yeah.
it never
Then it's
it never
not.
seems to work out.
Right.
So
Then it's the wrong thing. Linda, what have we got coming up? Talk to us a little bit about what we've got
Sure,
coming up. What can we look forward to on the K-Files?
next week we're going to start looking at Orlando Flowers.
Now, tell me who that is a little
He's
bit.
a gentleman that was just a good guy. I mean, he, you know, never any real trouble, you know, everything like that. He got into a little bit of a dispute with another gentleman over a lady,
Right?
and he's dead. This happened a few years ago, and there's a lot of interesting information, just like with the Jeff Cobb
Where's
case.
this case?
It's in Rocky Mount.
Rocky Mount,
Yeah,
okay.
and just like with the Jeff Cobb case, I mean, there's a whole lot more to it when you start unpeeling it. You know, it's like an onion. There's a lot of layers into this
Right,
case.
right, sure.
And I think people will be they'll be shocked by some of the situations in this case. And so
Right.
that's one we're going to spend a little bit of time on.
Okay.
I'm also I just talked to Major Strickland about the death of a pretty famous golfer up at the Gold Rock Hotel
Yeah, I
many
keep
years
hearing
ago.
about that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit in the coming weeks. Let me see what else. There's a lot of we're going to get into the Seven Bridges Road stuff. We were going to talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit today, but I mean, obviously,
Right.
if we got when
Well,
we
we were
got
kinda
Jeff
busy
here, we're gonna-
today.
right? You know, so but we're gonna slowly go through that. That's something we could talk about for the next 5 years and not cover
Right.
all the bases on that one. But I want to start talking about each one of the victims and letting people know, you know, because I mean, this is a thing that it's a touchy subject for everybody.
It is.
You know,
It is.
But this is a thing that we've got 13 women dead and only one conviction. You know, so we have to look at all these women and find out, you know, who really
Yes,
did kill all of
absolutely.
these women. You know, so we'll be looking at that. I guess that's it for right now. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
we don't
there's.
want to divulge too much. We
Well,
just want to make you watch.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I don't know. So there
Yeah.
ain't very much divulging. There's so much. I've written about so many murder cases
Yeah,
here
you've got
since I've been
a
here. I mean,
lot, and we're, you know,
and of course, we'll also be asking law enforcement which ones that they think are the best.
yeah, if they
Talking
come to
about-
us and say, hey, we really need your help with this one, because we're almost, you know, if they're knocking on doors and they are actively working on that case at that time, the people involved know that. And it's hot at that time, so it's a good time for us to reach out.
Right. You've been talking to the cops, I
I
can tell.
have. That's exactly what they told me
I can
yesterday
tell.
when I met with them.
I know cops speak
So
when I hear
I
it.
said, we'll be glad to
That's
talk
right.
we'll be glad to let you come on and talk about a case. So that's our goal, is just to assist the police to try to bring closure to some of these cases. So anyway, it's a very exciting thing that me and Lyndall have been wanting to do for a long time, and it came to fruition, and we're very glad. So anyway, thank everybody for watching today. Have a great day. Thank you, Lyndall. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Make it a safe one. Go over to Tarboro. They're the only ones having fireworks around here. Sit in your car, get out of your car, stand beside your car, do whatever. Couldn't figure out, though, one thing. They said when you come over, you must sit in your car. Wear your mask. They said wear your mask, distance, and wash your hands. I thought, I hope they meant in general, not while you're sitting in your car.
Yeah,
But
you're
anyway,
right, you're cool.
make it a great weekend, y'all.